Hi, 8th graders. Mrs. Bowerman again. Chapter 9 is called Liberation. One day in July, Sosha arrived in our chamber with a report that the Russians had captured the city of Tarampol, less than 100 kilometers east of where we were sitting. We were overjoyed at this because it meant the Germans were indeed retreating, confirming the accounts my father and the others have been reading in the newspapers. For over a year we had been praying for this, dreaming about it, willing it so. We thought now it would only be a few days before we, too, were liberated. Such was the momentum of the Russian army, and such was the strength of our fervent hope. But our happiness was short-lived, because only 2 days later, Sosha was back with a revised report. This time, it was revealed that the Germans had recaptured Tarnopol. It was a dispiriting turn. Furthermore, we learned that while the city had briefly been in Soviet hands, hundreds of Jews who had been in hiding came out from their shelters and started to celebrate. When the Germans regained control, these hundreds of Jews were swiftly exterminated. To experience the joyful prospect of liberation and then have it suddenly revoked struck us as particularly cruel at a time when we were particularly vulnerable to such cruelty. The turnabout reminded me of a cat-and-mouse game the ghetto commander Griesmick used to play with my father, telling him first he was free and then he was not free. The news played with our emotions, and already we were in a fragile state. The arrival of the prisoner Tola had upset the final balance of our underground community, and our will to live was slowly leaking from our pores. Probably we saw ourselves through Tola's disbelieving eyes, and the picture that came back was one of weakness and desperation. What had once been our shared strength was now, to someone like Tola, merely stubbornness and leftover will. We had made the best of a bad situation, this was true, but more and more it seemed that the bad situation would prevail. And so to have this bulletin of such great elation be so quickly deflated with a bulletin of such great tragedy was especially damaging to our spirits. Nobody could say whether it had been a strategy on the part of the Germans to lull the Soviets into victory on the streets of Tarnopol, and at the same time coax Jews out of hiding, or maybe the Germans had truly been defeated and then gathered their resources and resumed the fight. However it happened, whatever it meant, the way the Germans recaptured the city left us wary of future positive reports. It was a difficult paradox. We could not trust the Russians to win this fight, yet without a Russian victory, we were doomed to an eternity in this underground place. And then a strange thing happened. Jacob Berestayke arose early one morning and asked who among our group celebrated a birthday in July. It was an odd question, as if from nowhere. In addition to his religious beliefs, Berestayke believed in the power of dreams to help see into the future. However, he was also a pragmatist. He was all these things taken together, and on this night he experienced a dream that he felt would tell our fate. In this dream, he saw a vision of an elderly rabbi with a long white beard. The rabbi said, "In July, you will all be free." We discussed this dream over and over. We pressed Berestayke to share the details. Who else was in the dream? What were they doing? We could not agree what it might mean, if it meant anything at all. Berestayke took it on its face that we would be free in July. My father took it as an omen that our liberation was indeed coming. Chase Orenbach dismissed it as nonsense. Someone suggested that it was a dream of wish fulfillment, an indication that only Berestayke was hoping to be rescued sometime soon. Even Tola, our headstrong prisoner, had no opinion. Already he thought we were foolish to live like animals in our underground chamber. Now he thought we were foolish on top of foolish to give such careful thought to something as inconsequential as a dream. I did not venture an opinion, but I liked that an elderly rabbi with a long white beard had something to say about our future. It did not matter that it was an elderly rabbi in Berestayke's imagination only. It was a rabbi, after all, and Berestayke was a grown man, after all. I liked that between the two of them, someone had taken the time to consider our circumstance. It made me not feel so all alone. Still, we could not understand what prompted Berestechny to inquire about our birthdays, because there was nothing in his dream to require this information. Berestechny himself could not say, only that it was the first thing on his mind when he awoke. We planned to ask Sosha what he thought about what the dream might mean when he arrived later that morning with our daily delivery, but the hours passed with no sign of our sewer workers. The next day there was no sign of them again. Of course, this became the new topic of our group discussion: what had happened to Sosha and Wróblewski. It was more important than Berestechny's dream, because it was not like Sosha and Wróblewski to stay away from our chamber for 2 days in a row. Only once or twice in the year we had been in the sewer had Sosha not come for us for such a long time. Something must have happened, we all agreed. Perhaps the Germans had announced a curfew to keep civilians off the streets, and there had been no way for our sewer workers to pass unprotected into the sewer. Perhaps they'd been detained for some reason or other. There were any number of explanations for their absence, and none of them were good. Another day passed without a visit from Sosha and Wróblewski, and our mood darkened considerably. For a few days more there would be enough to eat, and yet we despaired. As we sat in the evening, my father did not even bother to take out his map and solicit opinions about the war, because there was no new information to add to the last discussion, and also because no one could offer a positive report. There was nothing to do but wait and wonder. When the adults were quiet, I pressed my imaginary friend Malik for an explanation. "What do you think, Malik?" I said. "They have been killed?" "It will be okay," he said. "They are coming." For a fourth day the sewer workers did not come, and our thoughts turned to the worst. Had our friends been captured at long last, at the very end of the German occupation? After everything we'd been through, there was no other explanation for their continued absence from our chamber. We would have mourned for them, except to do so would have meant to accept their sorry fate, so instead we prayed. Here again I encouraged Berestechny to do the job for us, because I believed he was closest to God.